And hello everyone, I'm Dan Lutz and I'm here with my co-host,
Tank.
And we're here on the front lines in the battle against the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminadonkeys, and all of those that wish to enslave all of humanity for their own selfish reasons. How's it going, Tank?
Oh, things are going pretty good. Been watching to see what breaks and working on some things that we had some people reach out to us about some progress that was made pertaining to an alternative method of delivering funds. So hopefully that's legit. A lot of times these sources betray us, so I'm hoping they don't. So
yeah. I hope this is about the time when all those ones that have been betraying us are they have other battles to fight. I think things are going on.
Yes.
There seem to be a lot of stuff happening all at one time. The censorship has definitely jumped up dramatically. On across the board. Dr. Shiva, he lost a couple of his videos. They're pointing everything down with vitamin C, so they pulled his stuff down. They took down that video that was from Dr. Batart. It was up to 9.1 million views in 6 days, and they pulled it. So,
yeah, of course.
And it was very powerful. But they say it is on Brighteon and BitChute as well. But it's the censorship. And Dr. Shiva was also very upset about his being pulled down. Because he was in the middle of a new live broadcast, right? Yeah. He was interesting.
Oh yeah.
Actually, he had an interesting take on things. He was talking about the post office. Or the postal service, which is it's a post office or postal service, and what the one that's written into the
Well, okay, so the post office is the original.
Okay.
Right. That's what it's supposed to be. The postal service is what it's become, which is basically the corporate takeover. But still, I guess the most legit.
So the
organization.
Yeah. So post office, he said, was freedom of the press. That was its intent. Coming from the guy who invented email, right? He knows about the previous mail, the snail mail. And so he said that this was invented because they wanted everyone to be able to have a cheap way to communicate with one another for their social space, right? So that you just write a letter, and for pennies, you'd be able to send a letter to anyone, anywhere. So that's how it came about, and that's its reason is for free speech. And he saw that Yahoo and Google and Hotmail and all these other places basically he said this, and I've been saying this to everyone. I said any email you write, anything you put in it, is no longer yours. So if you send photos of your children, post them on Facebook, put them in an email and send them to someone, a Gmail or whatever, you don't own those anymore. So that's the free part of this. So this free service you're getting that costs you by you giving up your rights to the data you put in there.
Right.
So anyway, so he was basically saying that we should use the post office now as a way to maintain free speech because of the censorship part. That's what got him started, right? He says because he got his videos pulled down, and he started to get upset, right? Obviously, I'd be upset. And so he basically was saying, we need to empower, the post office to be able to offer email to everybody, right? And you can pay, $50 a year or something like that, right? And you'd have, you'd be able to email anyone everywhere, right? Also, they wouldn't be able to deny you the email, right? But you could put in some things that would stop the spam, for example. I mean, very easy
Yeah.
to stop spam. Very easy to stop spam. Not the way they're doing it right now, because this gives them, this black box ability to basically hide what they don't want you to see. Never even makes it to your spam folder, right? They just don't deliver it. It's kind of like these mailmen, that get caught. It's a federal offense, but they just dumped all of the garbage mail, right? That comes in, right? They would pre-sort out. So this is garbage. They just wouldn't deliver it. They just throw it down a ravine or something.
Yep.
But,
Yeah, I've heard of that happening before. So yeah, I think Dr. Shiba, hey, welcome to the party. I'm glad that you're catching on. I feel like we've been talking about using the mail for some time in a different way. I actually think at the end of the day, that's kind of how we break free the mail on some level, right? But I think just going door to door and putting notice on people's door, right? I mean, that's basically what they're doing with COVID. I walk by people's mailbox every day. It's obviously hand delivered. I don't know if that's by the post office themselves or who, but makes me wonder if we can just go to the post office. Technically, if we have the right location and establish this is, this needs to be sent out.
Well, he
via the assembly.
He said there's a technology is also there for Wi-Fi, so you could make a separate internet. That'd be all put an antenna on every post office.
Well, and the post office is also the bank, right?
Right.
So I mean, post office is where that would be the actual bank. Which, of all people to say it, it actually hurts the credibility. But actually, AOC actually mentioned this a while back. But she was right. We could use the actual bank. I mean, the actual.
I mean, there's no reason to use the IRS to move checks.
Control.
Yeah, there's no reason to use the IRS to move checks into the people's hands, right? You could use the post office. They could deliver it. That's what they're delivering the IRS check. So they could deliver money orders for $1,200.
Yeah.
Or $10,000.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm watching carefully to see how these things transpire. Pretty much. There's a lot of changes going on. Something's got to give, right?
Right.
It's like.
Well, it all seems to be giving at this point. This WikiLeaks dump, or not WikiLeaks. Yeah, WikiLeaks dump. So that all the Julian Assange files get dumped all at one time. I was listening to David Wilcock go off on about that, and he said, we've been waiting for this forever. This is the sign, and I believe he's right about that. That this is so much data that's there. Everything is there. Now it's about finding it. Have you found anything yet in WikiLeaks? Data dump.
I have collaboration with, I guess, it's Condoleezza Rice, who is the Barack Obama's, I don't know, Deputy Secretary of Security or something, something like that at that time, and she was coordinating with MI5 from the UK to continue surveillance.
Oh, treason.
On the Trump administration, and at the end of November, because they were deemed the Trump administration had already been deemed a threat to national security. So, I'd say that's kind of a smoking gun, right?
Seems like it. It seems like that smoking gun that shows treason of the Obama administration.
There's like a book, or not book, but it's like, I don't know, I forget how many pages it's in there as well, that is really excellent. I highly recommend anybody finding it. I'm sure we might already have it posted on the Speak Project, but it basically breaks down the CIA mind control programs But it's not the CIA, it's not the MKUltra program. It's just using the mainstream media and affecting the mass consciousness of people. It's cultural guidance. So it's, I forget what it's labeled, but it's pretty interesting.
I think it's labeled Pravda. It's labeled Pravda. Well, that went down really bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I guess. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello, hello? Well, that was a really bad joke, so okay. I let it, I guess Tank may have to jump off and jump back on. Anyway, so yes, it's cultural guidance, or Pravda, and as the USSR, were always so upset that they use state-sponsored media to put out their message. I also recall, I think it was one of the Soviet satellite states, I think it was Romania, when their dictator was taken. He died, he died, and it started to come about, like what was going on there, and Pravda, or in their Pravda version, right, for Romania, they had shown that every single phone call, someone else was listening in on it from the government. Every call, everything. They would listen in on your phone, even if you had it off. Right? They had bugs everywhere. They had put up everything that they could do as a surveillance state at that time, which again, it all broke apart back in the late 80s, I guess, something like that. And everyone was so appalled by all of this state-sponsored,
Surveillance.
Surveillance, yes. Oh, you're back. Oh. Yeah. Now I've got two of you up here.
Really?
Yeah, there's two of you showing. Well,
I'll get rid of the other one.
It might knock you off, so I'll leave it there. Because it both says the same name. It might drop off by itself. Maybe someone else wants to listen in. Hey, what do you guys know? Come on, just admit what you're doing. Just come on. It's time to stop your craziness. So anyway, I was just saying that we were so appalled when this happened in Romania. We found out how much they were just listening in on every single thing. We just it was so abhorrent to us. Now we carry around the cell phones, and we know that they can be listening to us at any time, right? We don't have the privacy, and it disappeared now. See, they got upset that we called them out. So, the other Create Change logo is gone. So, but we're dealing with it now, right? So why shouldn't we have privacy? Why should there be any government able to listen into anything that's coming over a phone? I don't care that it's that there's so many bad people out there and all this. This has always been the case, right? You should be ensuring that it's private from everybody, not just allowing you to listen in whenever you decide. Because look at all of the corruption that's taken place. They did it against Trump. You think they won't do it against any individual? I know. I have a friend of mine. He was so abused, and this is recently, over the last year, by someone in power in the police department that used all the surveillance equipment and stuff and bugging him and surveilling him and everything just to harass him because he stood up against him. The guy that was in the police department, and now he's gone.
Yeah.
I can't get a hold of him. Right? He just got rid of all of his electronic devices. He was so upset. He had replaced all his computers, all his Wi-Fi equipment, and he was safe for 3 days or something like that. right? And then it all started happening again. So now it's just this can't happen. This kind of power cannot be in the hands of the government. It's too powerful. It gets corrupted.
Well, I will say this as an encouragement with that, right? I was recently on a call with Kim, and the individual, he had contacted the CIA, and he was very, very concerned. He's like, listen, they're listening, now. They can intercept anything, right? To Kim, very, very confidently, she's like, no, they can't. They can't see it. They can't see what we're doing, And she went on to explain that essentially the Kim's system, which you have to believe, is more than just a monetary system, right? So there's military intelligence system, and there's, in all likelihood, there's some kind of internet monitoring system and some kind of I don't know, I'm not sure what else, but these what she said was, she goes, it runs on the electromagnetic field, basically, right? And it's completely independent of the satellites. It's independent of the wires, right? Because CIA laid the groundwork, so to speak, the wires, right, for communication. So of course they have access to them, and so the Kim system doesn't, though. It's not limited by either satellite or by the wires that are laid.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no way for them to monitor. They don't have access. So I think that's encouraging. If there's a way, right?
Yeah, it's good if it's a way to basically, I know that technology-wise you can basically solve these problems. There should not be an open, line that anyone can listen in on. If I'm speaking to you on Zoom, right? I don't want to think that the Chinese are tapping in and listening, and I don't want to have to, monitor what I'm saying, how I say it. Not having freedom. I hate not having freedom. It's like even when I had my first cell phone plans, right? As soon as they had an unlimited plan, I was on it. I don't like being limited. So these kind of limitation plans, limit on bandwidth, limit on these kind of things. It's like,
yeah, I mean, there's no way to live. Period. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
You're
constantly monitoring every little thing you do. I'm not a fan.
The universe is abundant. We're not shy on power. The whole thing exists on power, right? Every planet, every molecule, everything is based in power. Trying to put a tap on it, right? And monitor how much you get and then charge for it. It's the same. I'm looking at this encryption cryptocurrency patent that Microsoft just put out there, where they want to, if you're watching an ad, right, your brainwaves will register that you're watching an ad. That actually mines the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that's a scary thing when you think about it. That they're actually, I mean, really, they've contrived a currency that is running off of you.
Yeah.
And you are either wittingly or unwittingly giving over your energy to it.
Right. So then once you plug in, right, to the 3D world, like a 3D game, and you're playing that world, and while you're in there, you're seeing ads, right? So you get totally immersed in this world, and then you're just feeding it, right? And then you say, yeah, I'll buy that. And so you're spending as much, so it's giving them profit, and you're the battery.
Yep.
Right.
I was talking to my sons about this today. My sons are very, for 13-year-olds, they're very political now, right? Very aware of what's going on, and they have their own views and stuff. And very smart, in the way they look at things. And we were talking about this today about, what is the responsibility, right? Because we have laws, that says, you say you can't walk across the street, right? If be no cars coming, Like in certain states, you get a jaywalking ticket, right? I mean, so there's all types of things to limit what you do all the time. But yet, you can have somebody like Jussie Smollett, right, come out, fabricate a story that causes complete division, that you still have people that will pretend, right? They're still playing this game of let's pretend. What are the limitations on that? I mean, really, what is it? I mean, because there's crimes, right? But I guess you'd have to, I mean, effectively, draw some correlation for, like, causation, right? Like, this caused X, Y, and Z to happen. But I mean, but if you think about it, it's like he caused this. He intentionally tried to slander a whole group of people. I mean, it's a hate crime.
It's a hate crime. I was just about to say that. It's a hate crime. But on top of it being a hate crime, it's also treason. So you have a hate crime and treason, right? And of course, punishment is death by hanging. So they try to change the law, right, to outlaw hanging. Like, and this is really a major topic, right? Like, this is obvious something that needs to be done, right? So they had to, like, put this out there. So how clumsy of an attempt, an operation that they had to do this. I mean, obviously Obama was involved with this because you have Kamala Harris and Booker all, like, teaming up, right? Oh, it's a black versus white thing, right? It's a racist thing. Oh, if you're for lynching, hanging, if you're for hanging, then you must be a racist. No, we're patriots. we don't want you to basically act in treason and then get away with it. Right.
So that was the sloppiest setup, and Cory Booker and what's her name, Kamala Harris, should be arrested for that.
Well, I think that they're also guilty of treason, and obviously they should, live by the sword and die by hanging. They try to they try to make it illegal so that they wouldn't be hung. I think it's just desserts. Yeah.
Well, also, so they can call attention to the need for it, right?
Right.
So they make a big deal about something that's not even an issue, right?
No.
Like, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's getting hung up, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's done, like everyone's. No one would even think to do that at this point, right?
Right.
Especially, I mean, for the most part, most of your, your white people are so ashamed of being white. They would never bring this up, right? But the reality is, it's not a color issue, right? I mean, certainly not for Kamala Harris, who tries to reference that she listened to NWA back in the day, right? Like, who did, right? Like, I was a white kid in the suburb, or something. Like, I listened to NWA, right? Like, actually, I was in the country, not in the suburbs. So it's like a big deal. It's like, so, but she tries to make it seem like she's black, but she's Indian.
Right.
Yeah, she's definitely a woman of color.
She's
but
from
it's
India. She's from India, Indian, right? Pretending to be black, right? So, the interesting thing is, the caste system in India is also color related, right? So it's more like if you're the Brahmin, the whiter color, right? You are the highest caste.
Right.
Right. So she's black. She's the lowest, untouchable. The darker you are, I used to say that the Indians are the most racist because they're racist against themselves, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's an odd thing, right? Because they're all Indian, right? They're just like it's just an odd thing that they've become so racist against themselves.
It's all these things. They're all just evidence of successful mind programming. Mass mind control, right?
Right.
I mean, in reality, you're going to develop more pigment just based on where you live, right? I mean, like when Tui talks, right? He talks about the Zara collective, right?
Right.
Well, if he's the rock collector, I mean, in New York we call him Black, right? And hey, Kim, yeah, you couldn't get any whiter than Kim.
Yeah.
She's lily white, blue eyes, blonde hair. You know, so when you think about it, it's like, but you know, they're talking about it's the same. He shows that the origin of humanity, right? That swirl, right? He shows how it goes around Fiji and up into Russia. So, as different as we think we are, clearly, you know, it's about a teaspoon of melanin that separates, you know, somebody like as dark as STEELE, right? He's a singer, he's really dark, or you know, somebody as white as the, you know, the Addams family, I guess. And you know, it's like, is it really that big a deal? Is it really worth all the wars we fought and all the people we've killed over this? I mean, at the end of the day, you have the human race, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jussie Smollett, you know, it's a cultural divide. You know, he does something like this. So I'm fascinated by this because I'm like, you know, what is the responsibility right now? Let's take that to, you know, with Chris Cuomo, right? Chris Cuomo, who's, you know, oh, stay home, you got to stay home. It's so aggressive. I just barely survived the coronavirus, right? Meanwhile, he's riding bikes with his, you know, his wife and kids, and out in the park. It's like, you know,
so phony.
I question your credibility, man.
Yeah, I question your credibility. He has no credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous, you know, and they're unapologetic as well, even when they're busted, right? You're not going to see Chris Cuomo apologizing for his actions.
No, because they've been told their whole life they're better than everybody else. You know.
Yeah.
Like, you are exceptional. You are this. You know. Like, and just because of the way you were born, not because of anything that you've done, right? Which, you know, this is where it's like a fine line with like a meritocracy, you know, because the concept of a meritocracy, like the idea of doing things that have merit, right? I think has legs, right? The problem is that who is deciding what, you know, attributes have merit?
Well, we do it by committee. When you're back to the communist, you know, side, right? So everything's ruled by committee.
Yeah, right. And then that's why the media is the most powerful entity in the world. So right, because you can affect everybody.
So it's a, you know, it's a struggle to come up with something that is going to be fair as possible, empowering as possible, and allow for, you know, stability. So I think when they came up with the United States, that these were very learned individuals that knew a lot of the, you know, the mystic arts, the sacred geometry, the way of how power is manipulated by the royalty, you know, and they came up with a way of balancing it out. You have the Senate and the House, and you have the presidency. And it all comes down to the president, you know, leading, right? But there's the checks and the balance. So it's a beautiful system. And the more interesting enough is that every state is a country.
Yeah.
Right? And that each of those states, you know, has the same rules of the same Bill of Rights, the same basic principles are all the same. And then under Manifest Destiny, it was taken from one coast to the other. And then it didn't stop. But they never became states after that, right? Except you had Hawaii and you had Alaska. But after that, you know, no more states. What happened to Puerto Rico? Well, they didn't want more states to come in because they don't want this concept to be the United States of Earth. Right? Because if this system works the best, it would just keep going. You'd have other countries that would say, hey, I want to be in. There would be no need for United Nations, right? Because you had one. here's the principle. We're all going by this: freedom. Individuals have rights, unalienable rights given by God. So they couldn't have this, right? They had to basically put in the alternative, which was the United Nations. And they first started talking about this under the League of Nations, right? They had to squash this, right? Because when it got started in the late 1700s, they took them 100 years to try and break it up, and they had to put a couple central banks in the way, and that didn't work. They kept getting rid of the central banks. So their system of control. So they again divide and conquer. So, the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. Well, of course, it was an issue of the times because of freedom was the issue, right? Freedom from the tyranny of the monarchies of the king, right? They wanted to get away. So they end up, forming this system that could roll over the entire world and supplant the royal system. So
monarchy.
The monarchy.
Yeah.
Well, there's more than one monarchy. That's why I was kind of hedging. So there's around the world. There's you had the Maharajas in India, right? The Maharaja of India was the wealthiest man on the planet, and the British. That's why the British went there, right? They wanted to find out where all the gold was.
Right.
So so all the monarchies around the world, have a basic different system. And that's why they came together with their plan of the experts, right? They were trying to, so we're constantly trying to adapt and make a new better system. And so what was coming about from the United Nations, and this is communism and everything, they're trying to make a one world communism system, right? And now it's kind of a corporate communism now, right? They said, well, the communism stuff didn't work, right? Nobody did anything really bad. Your slaves not wanting to work, right? So
yeah.
Right. So they had to come up with something else.
That's how you sold it to everybody, right? Like, hey, you don't have to work.
Yeah. Well, universal income. It's the same. It's the same.
It's amazing to me. Let me share.
If you must.
If I must.
Okay. There you go.
So this is the the basis for the seal that we created for the New York Assembly, right?
Okay.
So it's not the clearest picture, but see all the way around the lines coming in.
Yes.
Right. So that is actually string, right? And it's two strings that come in, and they intertwine with one another, right? And if I remember correctly, I believe it represents the male and the female. And then all these lines that come in all around, there's 50 of them. So I think that's part of the reason why they stopped at 50 states, because they took exactly, the model from the Iroquois. And then you have these squares in the middle, and then the tree there in the middle. Those represent the 5 nations, right? And in those 5 nations, you have, I think it's the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Seneca. And I think that's 5. But in that, right, so you have this principle that with the Mohawk, right? So Mohawk, they had the Longhouse, right? So everybody used the Longhouse, which is where we get our House of Representatives. And in the Longhouse, you had the Turtle, right, which was a matriarch, right? You had who's like the executive branch. Then you have the Wolf Clan, the Turtle Clan. Then you have the Wolf Clan, and then you have the Wolf Clan and the Bear Clan, right? And these represent our respective other houses, right? That they've turned into an elephant and a donkey. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, that's not accurate. It's the Senate and the Congress, right?
Okay.
Or the executive, the judicial, and the legislative branch. Now, all this comes from the Iroquois, right? Our whole form of government, and you can go through the whole Constitution and see that, right? But even the symbolism, right? You see the eagle at the top,
yeah,
and that's where we get our eagle, right? And then what you have is this is the great tree of peace, right? So the way the legend goes is that the great peacemaker, brought this all the tribes, brought them all together, brought the leadership. Now these lines, all these 50 lines, they represent different leaders, and in the middle is the people that are protected. And they took this great tree of peace, and they dug it up by the roots, and they threw all their weapons in. Now, and then they planted a new tree, and so the new tree was based on the idea of peace, right? And that's the whole idea about, really that's the true United Nations. Now we can't say that, right? But that's what they were. They were a unified people, right?
Why can't we say
now
that?
the unified? Well, no, I'm just saying we can't say it in the sense of, because now if you say the United Nations, people think something different is on it now.
Oh, I get you now. I get it. United Nations. All right. So the idea got bastardized.
Yeah, right. Which they do to everything, right? They take these pure principles, and then they make them something perverse, right? And it's unfortunate, because I talked to different groups, like the Maori, right? They had a whole plan back in September, and I don't know what happened, but they were going to the United Nations, right? And I'm like, why do you have to go to the United Nations?
Right.
Why do you need them to acknowledge you, right?
Right.
Why does everyone think that's the highest court? Well, it's not. It's the highest court.
Yep.
So I really think there
I
should
think
be some kind of high court.
Yeah.
But
So
not that.
well, I think it's so I go back and look at what has been happening, say, with the Federal Reserve. And QAnon was basically saying, when people say, well, when are we going to get rid of, when are we going to end the Fed? And the response was restructure. So the reason to go to the United Nations, right, is the same reason, is that there is, you might want to just start a restructuring of the United Nations and change the these basic things that are there that make it problematic for, like, why would you put people that admit countries that don't believe in say independence for every individual, and peace, and why would you put people in charge of human rights that are human rights abusers? I mean, these things are so backwards. Can you restructure it? Can you at least just say, okay, we're going to wipe out the old charter and here's the new one, and then it kind of has a continuation, right, and an evolution to it. Or do you replace it? I mean, maybe you can't restructure it, and maybe it has to go. I'm okay with either or, but if the Fed is going to be restructured, maybe everything gets restructured and made to serve man instead of use man.
Service, oh man, yeah.
Service of
up to foreman, I guess. Yeah. Service foreman. I know that the trust holds 6 seats on the United Nations Council. They're supposed to, right? But the trust technically does, and the Rothschilds are currently, representing those seats erroneously. And I've many times, I've many times asked him, I'm like, I want one of those seats in the United Nations. If the United Nations is going to continue to exist, I really, clearly every single person who's in the United Nations now, as far as, representing a country, should be removed immediately, because they've all signed off on agreements because of fear. Now, we can't have people that are there that are afraid of defunct forces that are no longer in power, right? You need people that are actually advocating for humanity across the board. And the more people that you have that are advocating for humanity, in these seats, it doesn't seem like it's such a corrupt organization anymore, really, right? Because you can act with some kind of, relative trust, right? Because everyone, is an advocate for humanity, versus being, an advocate for their, but the foundation, they advocate for their money, right? So they've all done what they're told because they had to worship the dollar, right? To get paid. So
do you know what 6 seats that they occupy?
So I mean, it's the real United Nations. What Kim has told me, they exist behind the scenes. It kind of directs the public face that we see.
Okay.
I believe they meet in like Switzerland or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I know there's, and people have argued me about this before, but there's no question. I mean, obviously, the decision's made. Remember back in 2015, I've never seen so many things that were so blatant in my life as in 2015. 2015, you have the Pope come to the United States, right? And everybody kisses the ring of the Pope. Everybody bows to Pope. Then you also have.
When he went to meet Obama in the White House, for a private prayer session. Do you know that at that time, that's when CERN was spinning up?
No, I didn't know that. Yeah, I know they were trying to open a portal, right, to bring back the devil.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in 2015, you have the head of the United Nations gets up and he says, "We will abolish poverty by 2030." And that sounds like such a noble effort, doesn't it? What he didn't clarify is what we plan to do is abolish the impoverished, right?
Right.
And when you think about it, it's like, wow, that's really spinning right on that. But that's the truth. I mean, That's what he was talking about.
Well, they announced it to the people what they're doing. They're going to eradicate the impoverished.
Right. And even now, it's really a tragedy. I'm in the process of gathering evidence, right, from these hospitals to get accounts of what's happening in the hospitals, right, to find out what is really taking place, because what appears to be taking place is that they are outright, practicing eugenics, right? We know that we have the actual orders that have gone out that say, if a child has autism or is Down syndrome, and they get sick with COVID, not to resuscitate them, right? And so imagine, the tragedy that are you kidding? You can't make that decision, right? Across the board, right? And then people come in, and whether they show, a kid might come in with asthma, they put him on a ventilator, and they basically, he codes out, and they don't do anything. Meanwhile, the ventilator would basically be putting, pressure on a kid's lungs, and
Hello? You faded out.
where it's cold, right? So
you faded out.
Allergy,
Tank, you faded out.
Okay.
The kid on the respirators where you faded out.
Oh, okay. So you have a kid on a respirator, or a ventilator. He might come in with asthma, right? You put him on a ventilator, and it's putting pressure on the lungs. Now, if the kid if he's actually having, an issue with asthma, his body might not be, actually getting the oxygen into the blood cells. So that might not help. That might actually exacerbate the problem, right? So that wouldn't actually, it would actually make that kid to be oxygen deficient, and the body couldn't respond fast enough, right? So, and what Sherry Edwards said last night, and I highly recommend everybody to go listen to Sherry Edwards on the Speak Project from last night. It's amazing. She talks about this, how they've been studying this, right? So, we haven't talked to her in 2 months or more. And now she's out, and she comes out, and they've been studying this, right? And what they found out is that it's responding more like an allergy, right? So what happens with an allergy is your body identifies something that's toxic to it, and then it overreacts, right, to try to get rid of it, right? And this is why you have inflammation that's coming. This could be potentially why we have cases where people are just dropping out, just falling out, right, because of that happening, and that would be in line with the ventilators being part of the problem. So while they're asking for more and more ventilators, these nurses have told us that every single room they're there, every room is just ventilators. That's all it is. Nothing else, right? They're just treating these issues, and anybody could. And they're saying that people are doing fine on oxygen, but then when you add the ventilator, this is what's taking them out. And this is why Cuomo said, "Look, if you want a ventilator, there's a good chance you're never coming off it."
Right. They're just making a death mill, right? To wipe out people.
Right.
Number one, they get paid out on their insurance policy. For their pandemic insurance policy, if they make their numbers, which looks like they're not going to make their numbers. Which is good.
Right.
And they also, as you said that they're putting if you have autism, so if you have anything like this, so maybe they want to get rid of the proof, of problems for vaccines, right? So that they eliminate if we start making them liable, which they should always have been liable for all of this harm.
Well, right, but what they're doing is they're getting people and they're saying, listen, we haven't tested you for COVID-19, but we want to make sure that if you're identified, is it okay to put you on a ventilator? Here's a form. Now, in that form, they're giving their consent to not resuscitate them.
No.
So if it gets so bad that you have to go on a ventilator, and it's really oxygen failure, the ventilator, they're right, it's going to exacerbate the problem. So it is really, it's a, potentially. Now, I'm not comfortable putting this out as an accusation yet, but I will say that I have probably a dozen reports so far of this exact practice taking place. Now, how can they know? How can they know this and it continues to go on and they're not liable? Because if I can see it from the outside and you're in the hospital, right, and this practice continues, you're the medical professionals. You're the ones supposed to be able to identify this.
Right.
And obviously they are. Because, there's a guy who, one of the doctors who's on the ICU in one of the major hospitals here, he came out and did a whole video on it. It said, people that coordinate, collaborate. That guy's probably not even working anymore now. Probably sent him home. Probably furloughed him. Because it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. We got to, and then if you put it in the context of the greater good, right?
Yeah.
And you say, look, we got to do this because of the greater good. Because I talked to, my kid's pediatrician who used to live 2 houses down with us. Right? So we'd always walk around, walk our dogs, and talk, right? And I remember we talked about the evidence on the vaccines, and he tried to play the greater good card on me. He's like, yes, I've given kids vaccines, and they've had reactions. He goes, it's for the greater good. I'm like, how? That logic is so broken. Yeah. How is it worth the greater? It certainly wasn't for the greater good for that parent. That kid. Unbelievable.
Yeah, especially when there's no proof about the greater good that they're proposing.
That's the question. Yeah. What are you basing that on? Yeah. Right? Because every doctor, you can get in an argument with a doctor over the evidence, and they state this like it's such absolute fact. Vaccines work. Remember this woman who had this video out on TikTok that said, she's like, we know, she said adamantly, we know vaccines do not cause autism. No, we don't. We know for a fact they do. It's in their PI.
Right.
It's like, how can you, you're the doctor. Didn't you read that?
Yeah, the package insert. You throw this technical terms at us, Tank. We're not all former pharmaceutical studies.
Package insert or prescribing information.
Right. Oh, prescribed information. Yeah. Okay. Package insert, prescribed information.
Prescribing information. But so you take that. This is if you've got medication, hardly anybody reads the PIs, right?
Oh,
Hardly anybody.
how is it possible without a microscope?
Right, but the doctors, part of the reason why we don't read it is we trust the doctor knows, right? This is why you have there's this push for a while, right, to take drug reps and make them educational specialists, which is what they should be, right? And they should be a required portion of the actual medical scene, right? They should come in and educate doctors. And they should be actually fair and balanced, not salespeople. They shouldn't be incentivized by how much a drug a doctor writes, But unfortunately, that's the process. And it's broken. This whole thing's broken.
Yeah.
So
now,
Kim did tell me a while back that these would phase out, though. Drug companies would phase out because we're about to start introducing cures. You don't need maintenance drugs if you have a cure.
Right. Yes, it's really interesting. Trump was calling out the cure for using ultraviolet light, bringing light inside the body, right? And people were making comments about how Dr. Burke was looking very uncomfortable in the situation. Like, how did she not know? And that trials on this has already started with the FDA for curing with light in February.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because obviously they have different goals, right?
Yeah, they have a different goal. So why is she looking so uncomfortable, right? She obviously knows it's her job to know, right? She's
right.
She should know all of these things, and so and if Trump is now out there showing how the sun kills it in a minute and a half, right? The half-life is a minute and a half. And then he calls Burke up, right? He keeps calling her up, right? And she's and you can tell how subdued she is at this point, how bad she's looking compared to where she was flying high. Her and Fauci was like, they were flying high, tag team. Woo, yeah, go on, right? Next up, boom, right? But now, very subdued. And I think it all started after Trump said, fire Fauci. Right?
Yeah.
Or he retweeted something that said, fire Fauci.
What's interesting though, right? So ultraviolet light has been used by chiropractors and other holistic practitioners for years, right?
Sure.
They know this. You have ultraviolet saunas. You have all types of ultraviolet treatments. You don't even need a medical license or anything else to use it, right? I mean, you could basically, I'm sure I could do a certification course on it probably and use ultraviolet light. So the reason why is a level 1 medical device. So a level 1 medical device basically means...
I figured it out. Why Trump hasn't caught it yet, and why they probably can't figure out why he's protected. He's suntanner. He's got a suntan booth. He's got a UV bulb in there, right?
Yeah, probably. Actually, probably.
There's ways of getting light into the body. It didn't dawn on me, until I was like, now it makes sense.
Well, okay, but so a level 1 medical device, right?
Yeah.
Basically what that means is that it's a level 1 medical device, meaning it's harmless, right? It doesn't do anything to the body to hurt the body. But they can't speak to prescribing, right? Or to specific indications, right? In other words, it's not that profitable for them yet, right? So you have lots of devices like this. You have like the Beamer. Now, the Beamer is like a mattress that you lay on that taps into the electromagnetic field, right? And basically, it breaks up microvascular circulation, right? Been around for like 30 years, right? Company out of Germany. When this all started, right before this all started, I want to say maybe in September, October, they stopped allowing the resellers of the Beamer to sell it here, right? There's one. You have the chaga mushroom. The chaga mushroom we know is these are just different treatments of, indications of conspiracy. The chaga mushroom, right? Well, we happen to know a company that has a coffee that deals with mushrooms, which probably acts similar to the chaga mushroom, right? So it would probably be very beneficial to treat coronavirus. And what did they do? They took them out. They took them out of business. Basically, brought up fraudulent charges that they'll keep them in litigation for years.
Sure.
Right? But in the meantime, they destroyed their whole business. You can't even get the product anymore. You have so now think about that. Now you're looking at a pattern, right? Like, wait, so it wouldn't surprise me, if you had other things that were just being taken out the same way.
Yeah,
now,
vitamin C
vitamin
C videos.
Right. Now, why does the FDA have power? Well, one, they shouldn't have power. But the Food and Drug Administration, what they do is they come up with rules and regulations, limitations on why a drug can be used or why it can't be used, right? Well, why don't those things apply to the vaccines?
Right.
Because you get vaccines to healthy people. And so there's no disease to treat. You're pre-treating. And so they've come up with a way around it, right? So they can get away with it, So all these different things, but, they're being pretty open about it now, like what the intent is to get everybody vaccinated, right?
Right.
Kansas could have opened up. They were about to open up, and they decided, we're not going to open up until the vaccine's done. Vaccine's in stage 1. But then you see in that video, that guy, it's like one of the press rooms covers the White House. And the guy goes, yeah, well, we're all vaccinated, so no big deal.
Right.
Wait a minute. What are you vaccinated with?
Yeah, what are you vaccinated with? And there's been no follow-up on that, right? Where is that reporter? Why is he, not explaining himself? And it's all when he says, when he says it's a hoax. No, it's not a hoax, but now the study shows it's only got 0.1 to 0.3. The average 0.2. See, I was right again.
Right.
The number in the beginning. This is just math, right? You just look at what the math actually is going to be.
Yep.
So that's why Burke was always talking about her numbers, and I go, okay, well, she must have some other data. It's like, This is the flu. It's the normal flu, right? So it's going to be 0.2. But it looks like it's even less deadly than the normal flu. So 0.02.
Between 0.1 and 0.3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a tenth of that. I think it's a tenth of that. I think it's going to end up being 0.02. So it's even.
Oh yeah.
It's like there was absolutely no reason for the shutdown, and who's responsible for it? Fauci, the CDC, the WHO. Who's responsible? China. So the battle against China is just heating up. I saw an interview with I forgot his name. With one of Trump's main guys for negotiation. He was saying that China is you can't trust China. China, what are we going to do? Get our medicines from them anymore? No. So what about the trade deal? We can't trust them on the trade. Can't trust them on. So it's really like flipped. Everything on China is now flipped. It looks like to me that they're not going to be looking at China anyway in a positive light anymore. We're not going to see Trump coming out and praising China for being the best, and so it's like, no, China is now going to be in the crosshairs because it was the center for all of this to be brought about. The doom and destruction across the planet was coming from China. And did they plan it? That's gonna now. It's like, was it planned?
Well,
and it's so Fauci's.
We put out a video on this too, where the that woman, I'm not even sure who it was, but she was talking about it, saying, well, China, that the coronavirus had been rampant for 6 weeks in China when, on December 15th, when they signed the trade deal with the U.S., right? The next day, the first case of the coronavirus was identified in the U.S. So you have to really wonder, what kind of influence does China have on our economy, on our government? I mean, we know for a fact the Chinese elders were paying the U.S. military for like 3 years, right? And it wasn't until Kim disrupted it that changed, right? So that's a scary notion, right? We know that the Chinese had our microchips, right? They were manufacturing our microchips,
right,
and used them to track wherever our battleships were going.
right.
That's scary. That's a scary thing, right? That's one problem with somebody else paying your salary for your military, right?
Right.
They own them.
Right.
And then you have 80% of our production of all products produced in China. It's only because Trump brought that back.
Yeah.
That he's been able to change that.
Well, it's now I think there was a poll that also was saying that 80% of the people are now against China, right? Thinking that so that we shouldn't have everything in China and so on. So that's all shifted now. So this is part of the plan, right? This is what needed to happen. The people needed to wake up to what's actually been going on around them. That China actually was so well entrenched. Yeah, everyone said, "Oh, they just make our stuff that we buy at Walmart." Right? This is much as people would think about what China's involvement is, but no.
Yeah.
They're paying their people are throughout our colleges. They're absorbing all of the knowledge, but their intent is to kill everybody, right? Because they're eugenists. They believe that their eugenics program is to eliminate anyone that's not Chinese. So do you actually think that they need anyone in the States? So if everyone dies, right, who's going to own it? They already own it on paper. And if all the people die, there's no one left.
Yeah. It's a
it's a battle.
Circus, man.
It's a
circus.
It's a war, and we're in it, but we didn't know it, right? They were in war against us, and when we open up open up to them and say, okay, well, we don't want to fight. We want you to be friends with us. Here, come in and we'll give you all this technology. We'll give you all this. We'll welcome you into the WTO, and then sure, And that's the favorite little poem that Trump likes to read to the audiences is about the snake, right? The woman taking the snake and take it into her house, and then a snake bites her, and he says, "You knew I was a snake when you brought me home,
right?
When you took me in." Yeah. So it's really bringing home the lesson that China is the snake.
Well, and it's unfortunate. I hate to do that, right? In a sense, right? Because I'm not anti-Chinese people.
Sure.
Right? It always comes down to, no, this is the Chinese elders, right? And the way they see us. Right?
No, I love Chinese people. I spent a lot of time there. I had a lot of good times, and they love their families. They want all of us. But I heard the message loud and clear. About the ones that stand up get pounded down, right? So it's such a difference, right? In a suppression of things. It's interesting that the only religion you really see there. As we had this conversation about no morality, right? And so I'd have this conversation, and it was really that they replaced it with loyalty, right? So you can screw over anybody, right? But not the people that should be loyal to, which is your people you're connected to. Anyone outside of the circle, free game. So, we're not in the circle with them, right? They can do anything to us, and they don't have a problem with it. It's within their morality, but because they have no loyalty to us.
Dehumanize, right? Make categories of humans and subhumans.
Yeah.
And that's basically, and then superhumans, I guess, because that's basically what's happened. So, they've subhumanized us. Which, hey, I've always been a believer in proving my worth, So, not to them though.
Yeah.
I think you got to prove your worth to yourself, right?
Yeah. So it's the concept of just respecting every human life, right, and that everyone is human, that we know of, every race on this planet is human. That's how when I used to do the census, right? I've done it twice, where they you get the census form, and they say, "What race are you?" I just put human.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to basically try and mark, that you're this one or the other one. So it's division, right? Divide and conquer.
Yeah. Divide and conquer. So if people, but hey, and if that's the case, then unify and liberate would also be true, right?
Unify and liberate.
Pretty simple reversal of things, right? Yeah. It's like, let's just find the things we agree on, regardless of our, race, creed, nationality, sex, caste, color, sexual preference, whatever, and let's figure out the things we agree on.
Yeah, we agree that we agree, to clean air, clean water, clean food, the best things to protect our children, and that there's only two sexes.
Right. Yeah. If you have to mix with one of the two sexes, then that's not a sex by itself.
Yeah.
That's a fabrication.
Yeah. It's a mental disorder. It's a delusion. It's a delusion. It is, and it's just, I'm a chair. You got to agree with me. I'm a chair. No, you're insane. See, I'm talking. See, I'm talking to myself, right? So I'm crazy. So
right. So it's crazy stuff, man.
It is crazy stuff. I mean, but they want to make you think that whatever they say, you're going to agree to. This is the programming, right? Clean slate, right? You don't need to have sex, right? You don't need to make it so confusing for you that you can't even get aroused anymore, right? That to basically destroy your sexuality, make you so confused, so you'll basically self-eliminate yourself from the gene pool.
Well, shame is a real easy way to kill sexual drive, right? If you feel ashamed, which is what they're trying to promote. To make you feel ashamed about being whatever you are. It doesn't matter. Everybody, they're pushing shame on everyone. And, and I remember hearing this from, this spokesperson during the RV, and he was talking about how the Chinese are shaming the Americans for their gluttonous ways. I'm like, who the hell are they to shame us about anything?
Yeah.
Like, So, I think it's time for us to lay shame aside. I don't do things I'm ashamed of. I realized that a long time ago that I can't, and I don't deal well with feeling guilty. So I just rather not do things I'm ashamed of.
Right.
Not say things I feel guilty about.
Yeah.
Or say things I don't mean in general. I don't like mean-spirited jokes. At other people's expense.
Right.
Because I don't like things that don't make me feel good. So I'd rather feel good. So let's go do that. That'll push it forward.
That's a good idea. So I think we're good for today. What do you think?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you as always. Everybody out there, have a great night. All right.
All right. Thanks, Tank. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow. Be sure to subscribe and share. Give those positive likes and positive comments. See you tomorrow.